So tonight, we begin a whole new book of the Torah on this Shabbat. You know it as Leviticus from the Greek, but its original name is Vayikra, which means, and God called, as in, and God called to Moses and spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children. Jews like to talk a lot, so speak to the children of Israel and explain to them probably the most misunderstood idea out there, what these sacrifices were about. All the offerings. The word for sacrifice in Hebrew, korban, means literally to draw near. The sacrifices were a way for our Jewish ancestors to give something of themselves to God, something important. These offerings were the ways by which our ancestors gave back, even if it was just some grain or flour. It wasn't necessarily a cow or a goat. And the offerings ranged from, they weren't just if you did something wrong, like a sin. There's a well-being sacrifice, a thanksgiving sacrifice, an evening sacrifice. If you strayed from the way, what we call sin, and you were rich, you had an animal. It was like a big kosher Corky's barbecue. That's the other part people don't understand. They ate everything. But it was about the smoke going up to God. After the smoke went up, they ate it. But most of our ancestors were not rich. They were poor farmers. So they offered up flour, whatever it was. And the formula for all these offerings that go 5 chapters, and Jacob's going to read chapter 5, but there's 1 through 4. The formula is always, when a person brings an offering, Adam ki yakriv, with one exception, and I gave you a hint about what that exception is. When it comes to the most basic, cheap, inexpensive meal offering, a gift that poor people would bring, the word is different. Instead of it saying, a person should bring this offering, like something big, like a cow that you would then eat. It says, with regard to the meal, the flour, the most basic, inexpensive one that anyone could offer, here the Torah changes the word to a nefesh. When a soul, when a precious soul brings an offering, even though it's a modest gift, Rashi says, God considers it as if that person offered his or her own soul. The Jewish lesson is that it's the spirit of what you offer that God values, not what a person has or keeps. And what's also fascinating about this offering of flour is that it can't be leavened. It has to be like matzah. But why, if this has nothing to do with Passover? We're still a month away from Passover. And the answer is that the Torah doesn't say why it has to be like matzah. In fact, to spill the beans, the 13th century book Sefer HaChinuch, which lists all the 613 commandments and gives explanations for each one, basically says about this one, we don't know. Why does it have to be unleavened? But the rabbis do suggest an idea that I think you'll understand, that I like very much. The idea is that leaven is flour that has risen, bread that has risen, and it represents swollen pride, since leaven represents the swelling of the bread. And in Judaism, arrogance is the source of sin, while humility is the source of awe and reverence for God. Therefore, if these offerings we're going to be reading until May 23rd are supposed to bring us closer to God, swollen pride must have nothing to do with it. So that's why I was very reluctant about being honored this evening by the Men of Reformed Judaism. Our president, Todd Singer, asked for an occasion for this first ever Memphian of the Year. And I want to give credit to the men who did not call it Man of the Year. When a woman said, congratulations on being named the first ever Man of the Year in Memphis Magazine, I said, it's Memphian of the Year, so next year I hope they choose a woman. But what I want to say is that whatever I bring to Memphis and the greater community of faith, I bring as Temple Israel's rabbi. And that's what I was most happy about on the cover of Memphis Magazine. Not my picture and the airbrushing. The best part to me, and I've told our president this, is that the words Temple Israel were on the cover. We're all part of this jewel of the Jewish people, this extraordinary synagogue that's been alive, do you realize, for over 160 years? Before any of us were born, as far as I know. And God willing, it will still be here for generations to come, long after we're all gone, if we will it. You see, temple is like this third book of the Torah that Jacob's going to kick off tomorrow. It's all about the day-to-day, the details. Why is temple and Leviticus alike in being about the day-to-day? Who cares about the details? Vayikra, Leviticus, and Judaism say the details matter because God is in the details. And that's where we all are, in the details. If we were poets, schooled in the teachings of this book of the Torah we're starting tonight, and tomorrow morning, if you want to learn more, at 8:45, my teacher, Professor Arnie Eisen, says that you want to understand this book, and I would say, you want to understand temple? You don't just sing of bar mitzvahs or weddings, which we're about to start, or spring break vacations. This book and temple are about ordinary evenings. The peace of a Shabbat dinner table on a random Friday night. The pleasure of friendships built up year after year at the Passover Seder table. We try to capture the satisfactions that even arguments can provide when they take the right form. We might even try to capture not just the big wedding or the big event, but the joy of simple laughter. You see, Vayikra, Leviticus, focuses on the details, the minutiae of everyday life, because it's in the details where we're most susceptible to straying from the way. Straying from the way is what Judaism means by sin. Sin is straying from the way. And the opposite is holiness, which in Judaism means walking the right path. And that's why the Torah says, right smack in the middle of this book, and on Yom Kippur we read it, y'all strive for holiness. It's a y'all, it's not you. Y'all strive for holiness by staying on the right path. For I, the Lord your God, want you to walk the right path. And the people we love help us to stay on that path, right? Parents help children. Children help parents. Friends help friends. We're going to even read later in this book, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Remember that one? V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. And the literal force of the Hebrew is directional. Love is toward your neighbor, moving in his or her direction. It doesn't stop with a feeling inside, I love you. No. It demands loving behavior that occurs in relationships between people. So this book, as I've been taught, focuses on the realm of life which people share, the rituals which bring us together, the communities like temple we build, the day-to-day. This is a very hard book for we modern Jews to crack. You know why? You start reading about what Jacob's going to be reading about tomorrow and what I've been talking about tonight. Biblical times, the sacrifice, the taste and smells are not the taste and smells of life we live it today. But regardless of time or space, human desires are the same, and so are the 4 daily details that Leviticus deals with: eating, washing, speaking, and sex. For the next 2 months, I said it, until late May, to be exact, Leviticus will say, time after time, when it comes to eating, washing, speaking, and sex, make discriminations in those 4 areas. Think about what you eat, how you speak, even how you create holy relationships different than the way animals do. Instead of animal sacrifice, our modern concerns are things like mortgages, bills, school, jobs, retirement, illness, wills, the stuff of life, the day-to-day. And by the way, what's in your lap right now became the replacement for those ancient sacrifices. The name of the prayer and the prayer book is Avodah Shebalev, the offering of the heart. So in closing, the obsession of Leviticus is the joy of finding meaning in the details. Because when you do, you realize that every day is a gift and everything you do matters. And this is an add-on, seeing the children who've been so good at this service. I'll tell you a story about someone around Ben's age. What grade are you in? 3rd, yeah. It's a true story. Some of the other people here have probably heard it. And it makes the point about how everything we do matters. The details matter. There was an older man, I guess I'm an older man, who saw a 3rd grade boy picking up starfish that had washed ashore and throwing the starfish back into the ocean. And the older man asked the boy, "Why are you doing that?" And the boy replied, "Well, the stranded starfish will die if I leave the starfish out in the sun." But the older guy like me said, "But silly boy, the beach goes on for miles and miles. How can what you're doing really make a difference?" The boy, like you, picked it up, threw it into the water, and then he looked at the older man and he said, "It makes a difference to that one. It makes a big difference to that one." That we can make a difference to someone, that our efforts do make a difference and matter to God, that the details, the particulars, the minutia of every day are where we find the holy can be found by following the right path. That's the larger frame of Temple Israel, of the Torah, and of this beautiful new book of the Torah. May we draw closer to God, Judaism, and each other. And may we be led to lives of goodness, holiness, and blessing. And let us all say, Amen.